The schools should not be tolerating
But the schools are not.
A teacher should not be saying, if you believe that women have vaginas and men have penises, you have to leave the school. That is complete nonsense.
No.
Right?
In this particular case, the Telegraph cited this handful of examples. They were by teachers, individual teachers. They were not school policy. And in at least one case, the school disowned the teacher and the policy and said that it wouldn't happen again.
But what about this case in Rye College?
Well, yeah, I'm sure there are some examples of excesses, but on the basis of those exceptions, you can't make a generalised attack upon the school system and suggest that all our kids are being propagandised in this way, because it's simply not
When you hear
happening.
that teacher, I think, to bring Douglas back in, when you hear that teacher, there's clear evidence of what we've all been fearing has been going on, which is a teacher caught on tape literally spewing nonsensical gender ideology propaganda.
But one teacher.
Yes,
only
I think,
one
by the way,
teacher.
One
out of
teacher-
tens of thousands.
Well, hang on. One teacher caught on tape.
think-
Right? There have been many other instances of this being reported, but no one's actually had it on tape. It's a bit like, I would liken it to the Partygate scandal, when we finally got a video of the people having what was clearly a party. There have been lots of rumours about it.
So
now we have a teacher clearly on tape doing this
But
stuff.
it's not official school
So,
policy.
if I may,
Schools across the
if I
country
may.
are
Well,
not...
she's still, to
I'm
my
not
knowledge,
sanctioning this.
she is still working at that school. Douglas.
If I may, first of all, Ava rather unfortunately misspoke earlier when she said that the schoolgirl in question was acting out a fallacy. I think you meant a fantasy. But actually, she is acting out a
Thanks, Douglas.
fallacy.
Thanks ever
a
so much.
fallacy.
But do you know what I find
fallacy
She was right with
which has
fallacy.
been-
Do you know what's
a
fascinating
fallacy
about
which
Douglas?
has been propagated. A fallacy which has been propagated by gender ideologues and is doing profound damage to gay people, among others, in our society, as well as women.
Like
and
you've
let me
ever
explain very
cared.
quick. Let me
Ever cared.
explain very quickly why. I can't quite hear you, but I can hear you muttering something. Let me quickly explain why. A poll that just got published in the United States showed that among the general population, support for gay marriage has been starting to decline in the last year. Why is that? It's because the arguments that actually brought about liberal rights for all minorities in the last few decades have started to get turned on their head and turned against people. What is the source of that? It is the gender ideology movement. What is the tripwire for the general public? It is children. It is people learning that their children are being taught nonsensical things. It is being seen by the wider public, most of whom are heterosexual and don't need to identify as cis or anything else. It is being seen from that vantage point as the LGBTQIA+ movement losing control of itself. And so a backlash is starting. And the backlash is coming because people are lying to children and are using children for medical experiments. There's nothing
that's
funny about that.
ridiculous.
There's nothing that should cause levity in that. It should be treated by adults seriously.
OK,
No,
Ava?
So, Douglas, it's really important, actually, all of that point that you've just brought up, it's very on brand for you because, you know, you like to stoke fear. You've actually made a career out of it. I'll take you back to your book, The Strange Death of
Ava.
Europe, and you made a big fright, you frightened the entire public about your thoughts on Europe, and we ended up in Brexit. You weren't the sole contributor to that, but you were a big
Can we
voice
stick
in
onto
that.
the
Ava,
theme?
I will.
If I may
And then,
say so
now
very
we're talking
quickly.
about LGBTQ.
If I may say so
and you're
very
creating...
quickly,
Hang on,
Piers.
you spoke. I'm speaking.
No,
I'm speaking.
I'll
you spoke.
reply.
This is, I mean...
And I'll reply.
Hello. I haven't
Let
finished.
Ava speak, please,
Now,
Douglas.
back on the trans issue, when you're talking about LGBTQ, what you've just done there is basically say that the whole of America, who have historically had a problem with gay marriage, are now turning on it because a couple of children in a classroom in Sussex want to be a cat. If you can't see the ridiculousness in that argument, I can't help you.
No.
The bigger
Well,
issue
first of
is
all, I must
there is no
respond
such
to
thing
Ava,
as gender
Piers.
ideology. We
I
all
must
have
respond
gender
to
identities. You identify as a man, and I fully respect you.
Well, no, hang on. I don't identify as a man. I was born a biological
Yes,
male.
yes.
That's where this whole thing
Piers, you need to
goes,
let me come in.
rogue. I'll bring you back in, Douglas, as I say. That's where the whole debate goes rogue. You were born a biological male. You were born a biological female. Douglas, biological male. This is just a fact. Right?
No.
Once you start saying there are hundreds of genders and you can identify as anything you want, you're going to end up with kids at school going, I'm a horse. And you've got to treat me like a horse.
Piers, you're confusing two things.
No, I'm not.
Sex and gender.
I'm not.
I
because
accept
they are being conflated.
biological sex is one thing which I totally accept, and so do 99% of the people in the LGBT plus community. Gender is something different. Gender identity is how you see yourself.
And do you believe it's limitless?
No, I don't believe it's limited.
What's the limit?
Well, there is basically male and female and intersex, but there are people who have different gender identities.
No, but how many genders are there?
Well, there is no fixed number.
So what's the limit?
I don't see a particular limit.
There's no limit. So when you said there's no, you said there is a limit. Now you admit there's no limit.
Sorry.
Well,
There is male and female
is
identity.
there a limit or not to
There's
the number of
intersex
genders?
identity.
No, that's sex.
But
gender, is there a limit to number of genders?
Well, there are some people who are asexual. That's an identity.
No, there are
some
the BBC.
people-
The BBC has put in education videos. There are 100+ genders.
Well, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with
So
that.
what is the limit? What's the number?
Well, I'm not going to specify a particular number, but it's very small.
But where do
It's
you
very
draw? Where
small.
do you draw the line?
Well, I draw the line based on science and evidence. And we know that there is a thing called intersex, where people are born with a mixture of both
That is
male,
literally what it says
both,
on.
both
That's what it
male
says on
and
the tin.
female.
That is intersex.
Yeah.
People are born with chromosomes from both,
Yeah.
right? That is a medical condition.
Yeah.
That's inarguable, right? We're talking about gender.
Well,
Douglas,
trans identity is also a biological fact.
I know, but once I
rooted in brain structures and processes.
I understand it, but once
as the new science shows.
But once you get into 100 genders, people can
we're not
literally
debating 100 genders.
Well, actually, the BBC has taught kids. This is back to Douglas's point about affecting the brains of impressionable young kids.
Well, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the BBC if they're saying
Okay.
100+ genders.
Okay, Douglas.
Very quickly, I don't know, Ava, anything about your career. I don't know if you have one. But you did try to imply that you knew something about mine, and you just showed you know nothing about it, because actually my 2017 bestseller, The Strange Death of Europe, was not about the EU. So you should learn at some point to read more than the title of the book before
Europe.
commenting upon it.
It was about
so
migration.
Let me very quickly...
And how rude are you? How rude are you?
Very quickly...
You've built a career out of fear-mongering, and you're now importing those evangelical American ideas onto UK television.
You haven't even
it's
built
very
a
odd.
career, have you? You haven't
What are
even
you
built a
talking
career.
about? I'm on
So
the
let
same
me
panel
finish
as
for a
you, Han, and we're
second.
getting the same.
Do you know what? I'm going to wrap it up by saying you've both got wonderful careers, or you wouldn't be on Piers Morgan Uncensored.